the bark buildings and like dog drop,
Hmm.
and like doggo with the training app. And so everyone has, of course, different ways in which they're kind of looking at this. And I thought inviting Carlton here, past experience, you have spent quite some time with user testing
That's right.
uh, before Animal Biome. And so maybe I'll turn it over and let you talk about yourself and
Sure.
set the stage.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Actually, I'm going to share the whole screen. Actually, stop that. I'm going to reshare because I need to share audio. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to talk about customer-centric design. And in some ways, that's the philosophy behind user testing and why you should user test and what do you use it for. And I have a number of slides here. I can fill a whole hour, but if you have questions, feel free to just jump in and ask them, because you'll get more out of it that way. And I'm going to make some assumptions that you guys have heard about customer-centric design and user testing or user research. But if you have like basic questions, want me to go over that, I'm happy to do that. Okay, so this is what we're going to cover. What is customer experience? What is user experience? Why it's important? I'm going to show you some user research I did on our own platform, and also it's just some case examples of how user research can help companies win in the marketplace. And then I did look at a couple different platforms, and I'll talk to you about pros and cons of a couple platforms, and then just open it up for questions. So a little about me. I started my career as a lawyer, and you may be asking, what's this lawyer doing talking about user research? But my path, I'm someone who likes to keep learning. And so I moved from the law into basically doing, I was general counsel and head of business development at a consumer electronics company, went public, then got purchased by Micron. I spun a business out of Lexar called Fan Photos, which was basically e-commerce as a service. Sort of think of like Shopify, but for photos. And we focused it in on souvenir photos. So our customers were Major League Baseball, NHL, Live Nation, things like that. And so I ran, that was a venture-backed company that I ran for about 10 years. It was a software platform. So lots of software development, interactions with users, and I was not familiar with the idea of customer-centric design. And I can give you many examples of how we paid for that over and over again. And then after I sold Fan Photos, I joined Medallia, which is a customer experience platform. And what I did for them was I managed their partner program, and my primary partner was Bain and Company. And one of the things that we did together was promote the use of the Net Promoter System within Medallia's customers and to joint potential new customers. And so for about 3 years, I had a crash course in customer experience, the Net Promoter System, how to use customer feedback to improve your business. And one of our best case examples was Comcast. And I don't know if anyone here is a Comcast customer, but they're renowned for their really crappy customer service, but also their platform, their user interface is also pretty bad. And so one of the first things, they spent a lot of money on a Medallia platform, on the order of 3 to 4 million just on the software, and then another 10 to 12 on implementing it and using Bain and Accenture to actually get it working. And the big thing that they found immediately was that new customers would sign up for auto pay, but the way their auto pay worked is that it wouldn't take effect for 2 billing cycles. So invariably, many of their new customers would miss their first payment, and they'd end up in this whole like collection spiral. And so they would take their new customers who really wanted to be their best customers and get into auto pay, um, and had them have this really crappy experience. And so it's a great example for Medallia of how they can help this big company improve their customer experience. But one of the things I realized was that catching that problem after it was on a live platform for 2 years, causing all of this customer pain, was really ass backwards. And that the better way of doing it would have been to catch that problem before they launched it and had 2 years of bad experiences. And so that was one of the reasons I moved over to user testing, because user testing really focused on the part of customer experience before a product or service gets launched. And so I led the partner program business development user testing. Again, my primary partner was Bain, and so really bringing the same kind of philosophy, but to a different part of the user journey. And then I joined Animal Biome about 1.5 years ago. I was an early investor and supporter. Holly Gens, the founder, is my wife, and so I was an early supporter and then came in full time about 1.5 years ago. So that's my background. And so the way I explain it and think about it is that I've really been in customer experience and user experience the last 5 years on a pretty dedicated basis. And so what is CX and how is it different than UX? So customer experience is, a hot buzzword. Everyone talks about it. And I've been in both of these camps, and typically customer experience is using surveys to get feedback from customers. And it's a much larger sample size. And you're aggregating that feedback to improve the experience for an individual customer as well as the customer base as a whole. But CX primarily focuses on the customer experience of live products and services. And so it's not as useful during the development process as you're trying to decide, are we developing the right product? Does it have the right feature set? Is it usable by customers in a way that's delightful and better than our competitors? And that's really where UX comes in. And so it's really looking at how is the product design, the information architecture, where is the information in an app or on a web page? Is the visual design pleasing? Does the language and the content actually resonate with customers? And it's typically a much smaller sample size because one of the things that we realize is that typically with user experience, you can start to see trends after 3 or 4 users go through the experience. And really it's much more of a qualitative research tool, but it can be just as powerful as a quantitative tool. And you can use it, it's really around the use of the product or service. So I'm going to pause there. Any questions about CX UX before I go on?
There will be a test at the end of this, so.
Okay. Yes, exactly. Okay. So, and, one of the great things about being in a startup is that when you're small and you have a small user base, you really can feel like you're much closer to your customer's experience. And a lot of the tools that I've used or sold helps larger companies actually behave like smaller companies, meaning really have an intuitive sense for their customers and even talk to them on a regular basis. The challenge is that we all want to be successful and grow, and there's this temptation as you grow your company to, you hire people who then take customer calls. You start developing new systems in a vacuum, and you're no longer as close to your customers. And the reality is that the companies that will win in the marketplace are the ones that deliver a superior customer experience. And everyone says they want to do it, but few actually do. And research shows that customers are actually willing to pay 4.5 times more for a better experience. And that the companies that deliver better experiences actually perform better in the marketplace. They produce higher margins, they acquire customers at a lower cost, and they actually, it costs less to serve those customers. So Amazon was an early customer of user testing where I was, and they really helped drive the platform to suit their needs. And Amazon basically does not release any product or service without having it go through a user research component. And they have very tight design and development cycles, and are getting user feedback at every step of the process. And so, you know, I think if you haven't done structured user research, you may not be aware of when and how you can do it. And so if you think about your customer journey and your product development lifecycle, so first is discovery. What is it that you are going to develop or build in terms of a product or a service? And often you can come up with an idea, draw it on the back of a napkin, or simply describe it in words, and actually get it in front of potential customers and really get a sense of whether that idea for a product actually is going to resonate and is viable. And then you can also start to gather the requirements for what that product needs to have to get people to change their behavior or switch from a competitive alternative. And then also you can start to identify gaps in your current product set, and where you can develop new products to address those gaps. And where and most startups do you get customer feedback in the discover process, but I think where almost all companies fail is getting that customer feedback in the build process. And so we're redesigning our web app right now, and I'm guilty of it, as you know, worse than many of my customers when I was at user testing, where like you start to, you know, you get your internal feedback with the dev team and the product team and maybe your customer success team, but then it just seems so hard to actually get real end users to look at a prototype or look at what you're doing and give feedback, because it's not quite ready and we know we're going to get all this negative feedback. And so most companies, most people shy away from getting that customer feedback in the build process, thinking, well, we'll get it right before we launch, and that's all we really need. And I'll talk about some examples later. That's really the wrong way of thinking about it, because once you get to the point of being ready to launch, you've already locked in a lot of the user experience, and the cost to rebuild it is substantial. Whereas if you've been getting that feedback along the way, you could have course corrected much more cost effectively. And then the other place you can use customer research is once you already have a product live and you want to optimize the experience, you want to optimize the success of a product. So a conversion rate optimization is a perfect place to do this. And I'll give you an example of a ticketing platform that used user testing to increase their conversion rate. Okay, so these are some of the customer examples from user testing. I pulled some of their slides because it was easier than making my own. And so one really obvious way to use user research is when you're looking at your checkout process and getting specific feedback as to what customers are thinking as they're going through the checkout process will help you increase your conversion rate. Also, like what products they're looking for that you don't offer. Things like that can really drive better experiences. So here's the ticketing platform. And so this example here on the left is how they were presenting their tickets before the user testing was done. And what they found was that consumers were looking at the see details as a way of getting more information about this ticket, but really that was the intention was that the consumer would click on that see details, and that was the beginning of the purchase process. And so when they changed see details to go, they saw their conversion rate basically double to 2.6%, which for this company was millions of dollars of additional revenue. And so I'll get into the different ways of collecting user research later, but one of the things that is a big inhibitor to companies collecting research is that it's perceived as taking a long time. Who you're going to get feedback from, how do you structure it, how long does it take to get feedback, and then how do you analyze and do anything with it. And the trend in the industry is to really shorten that from 4 to 8 weeks to just 2 days. And in all the platforms I tried over the last week prepping for this, I was able to get feedback on our platform within an hour. And then it does take a little bit of time to look at that feedback, but really within 2 days, you can surface insights that will immediately help you improve the experience for your users. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the platform now. While I'm doing that, any questions?
I guess, my big question is we look at these kind of big media or big commerce companies, and you're going to show us some of yours. I guess, the big thing coming to me is, how does someone either, one, get started, and two, is this something that someone can do on their own?
Yeah. So I'll talk about the 3 platforms that I would recommend and the pros and cons, but really creating a new test is really easy. I'll step through and show you how to do that now. You basically select what you're going to test. I selected a website, and I would say the user testing platforms, it is really robust. So like you can do a lot with it, but they also have some out of the box questions that make it really easy. And with their platform, you can either use their panel or your own. The nice thing about using their panel is that you can use screener questions to get to exactly the kind of user you're looking for, whether that's a consumer or someone in business. And so, searching for people that have a dog or cat is pretty easy. Having your panel have people with a dog or cat with a GI problem, you can actually find that on their panel. Or if you're looking for, where it starts to get a little hard is if you're looking for a brand, a buyer at a big box retail store, that would be hard to find on their panel. But you can custom recruit that, or if you know people that fit that profile, you can recruit them here. Okay, I'm going to stop my video just because it seems like it's bogging me down a bit. Okay. So first you select who you want to test, and there are all these demographic filters. You can add screener questions. I'm not going to create it now, but what I'm going to do is show you the test that I created so that you can see the steps. Basically, you select your audience, you select your oh, that's not the right one. You select your audience, you select what questions you want to ask, and then, so I basically just screened for people who had a cat or a dog, and there are other different examples that you can choose from. Sorry, I'm trying to navigate this Zoom here. So these are the questions I asked. Without leaving the homepage, what are your initial impressions of the website? Take as much time as you want to explore this website, move to the next task when you're ready. And you can see like how long it took them to do this task, what they clicked on, number of pages visited. in your own words, describe what this company offers, name at least 2 offerings. What 3 words would you use to describe this company? Also, you can ask for written responses or oral responses. And some of the platforms do basically do automated transcripts. So everything that the tester is saying, it's automatically put into text. In this case, I had them look at a competitive website and then give a feedback on that site, and then compare that website to our own. And then you can do different success criteria, like, you know, which site would you recommend and things like that. So you really can design a test in maybe 15 minutes and then actually have feedback within an hour. And so what, go ahead.
To be clear, like you're using user panels from user testing, not your own.
In this case, I was, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And part of the reason is that even though we have a whole bunch of customers that would give us feedback, if you want like structured feedback, the user testing panel is trained to speak their thoughts aloud as they go through the process. And so you get better feedback from a user testing panel than typically you'd get from your own. And
it's because those folks are paid, correct?
That's right. So they get paid about $15 for a 15-minute video. Okay, so I'm going to show you what the platform looks like. And also, one of the nice things about the user testing platform is that you can upload a video that from any platform. So like if you did an in-person interview or a Zoom interview, you could just upload it to their platform and take advantage of all their tools. So basically, you can play the video, take clips, indicate what the sentiment is, favorite clips, and then ultimately create a highlight reel. And so I'm just going to, you know, play. I just thought this one was funny because, you know, sometimes you get so inside your own, you know, sport, if you will, that you forget simple things like it turns out that some consumers can't even pronounce the name of our company. And so
first, so it's animal biome. So we have about, which is about the company. How first, so it's animal biome. So we have about, which is about the company. How it works, our science.
So you can change the speed of the playback. I had it on 1.8 so that you can get through the video more quickly. But I just, you know, when you think of a company name, I didn't create Animal Biome as the company name, but like, you know, if people can't pronounce it, then they can't really communicate about it and share it. So it's part of building the brand. And I just thought that was sort of something I had forgotten to think about. And so having an actual user make it so obvious was not refreshing, but sobering is maybe the right word. And so what I'm going to do is show you a highlight reel I created from one of these videos.
First, so it's animal biome. So we have about, okay, so I'm going to X out of that because I wouldn't sign up for it without becoming familiar with the site first. And I also love the image of the pets. I like how this doesn't change, but the cat and the dog does. So you can clearly see what their focus is. I mean, yes, in the name or the title where it says restore. Okay, I like to read customer reviews. Day 4 of the poo/fecal probiotic pills, and we have solid poop Houston. That's from our. So this would be my favorite section, especially since I can see when it was updated. I love that I can read about this this product as well as also, you know, customer stories, because that's pretty cool. It's not anywhere else. 3 words that I would use would be helpful, unique, and thorough. And And so this would help me to better help my dog, to help him be the best that he can be and make sure that he's not in any pain and he's going to live as long and healthy life as possible. I chose unique because I response, which was thorough. I think that they did a really good job of explaining exactly how this works, exactly what it is, and exactly what it does. Some people might look at this and think that it's pretty expensive, but I consider my dog to be a part of my family. And, he should be treated as such, and if there's anything wrong with him that I don't know about, I would want to do everything in my power to help him. And so I like that it doesn't just feel like a money grab. You know what I mean? It feels like it's something that will actually help him be his best, be at his best.
Okay. So that's a, it's really sort of rough editing, but that was about a 15-minute video, and I picked out a number of different insights that I thought would be useful to share with my team. And if you're like me, you've probably been sitting around with your co-founders or your development team, and you find yourself arguing about, what the image ought to be on the homepage, or when we should ask for people to sign up for our newsletter. And really, it's most companies make decision by opinion, and who has the loudest opinion in the group typically wins, or who is the most senior person in the group typically wins. But the advantage of having customer feedback like this is that you can actually bring the voice of the customer into that discussion. And one of the things we did here was we changed how we solicited people to sign up for our newsletter, because this wasn't the only tester that mentioned this, but we were asking people to sign up for our newsletter pretty much as soon as they came to our site. And new users don't even really know what we're about at that point, and they weren't signing up for the newsletter, and they actually felt like that ask was interfering with their ability to understand what we were about. So we completely changed when we ask for that people to sign up for our newsletter. We now divide it up. If you're a returning user, we don't ask for it. If you're a new user, we change when we ask for it. Another thing that we changed based on this feedback, or will change, is it seemed really clear that the users really liked our customer reviews and our blogs. But those two things are actually buried at the bottom of the homepage. And so we're going to be redesigning the homepage to make those something that customers encounter much earlier in the process. And there's one other clip I want to show you all. And Dylan, I'm not sure you know this, but Purina actually launched a competitive microbiome testing service to Animal Biome. Oh. And yeah, and so that's how you hit the big league, is when the biggest or second biggest pet food company in the world decides they want to compete with you.
I'm like, oh no, they didn't.
Exactly.
I don't know if I want my lab kit from the people that make dog chow.
Exactly. So let me just find that clip real quick, because what I did was one of the great things about user testing's platform is that you can actually have the testers compare your site to a competitor site, or just give you feedback on what they think about a competitor site. And so I did that, and I got this bit of feedback.
Animal Biome website, I think it seems more like it's trying to solve the problem, not just sell a test. And I also thought it really had an innovative solution in the donor capsules, instead of just recommendations in terms of pro and prebiotics and then some food ingredients. It had a solution. It had a treatment plan. So overall, the Animal Biome website was more robust. It talked about the science. It gave more information about microbiomes. It gave more information about what should be done. So just overall, it had more. And please provide any final comments, questions, or suggestions you have before you.
So part of, one of the things I liked about this one was that, so it's really, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but when I look at like a competitor like this, I have so much emotion around it that it's really hard for me to be objective about what I'm seeing and how we compare. And to actually have it in the voice of a consumer, and it sort of, you know, depersonalizes it and allows you to take a much more objective view of what they're offering versus what you're offering. And sometimes you'll get positive feedback, and sometimes you won't. And both types of feedback will help you improve. Okay,
Carlton,
so
have you taken something like this, as you operate both a DTC and purchases through Amazon's or other locations. Have you done any comparison about that process of shopping and buying in two different e-commerce environments?
so I haven't done it with Animal Biome because we don't sell on Amazon, but I've done it with clients. And I had this one client that makes really high-end headphones, and they sell the headphones from their own site and they sell it through Amazon. The price is the same, and it was very enlightening for them to realize why so many of their customers chose to buy the headphones from Amazon versus their own site. And so even though the price was the same, it was impactful for the team to understand the role of Prime, the role of free shipping, the ability to compare that product to non sort of products from a different provider, and how that enriched the shopping experience and made Amazon a better place to buy that super expensive headphone. So I haven't done it for Animal Biome, but lots of clients do it. Okay, so again, I'm going to pause. Feel free to jump in with questions.
I have a quick question, Carl.
Sure.
How do you go through all the noise? Because I'm sure you get an entire spectrum of feedback. Like, is it what keeps surfacing to the top, or how frequently does it have to keep surfacing before you know to make a change? Because I find we get pretty equal distribution anytime we get feedback with things.
You mean, when you say equal, you mean some people like it and some people don't?
Yeah, or there's, the 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And I have trouble sorting through, I wouldn't say the noise, but I guess the opinions. When, you can continue to make changes based on opinions, but then you're going to get another equal amount of people going back the other way. I just find that a little challenging. Do you have
exactly.
that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So you are introducing more opinions into the discussion, and you're not doing it with user research like this. You're not doing it in a quantitative way. So it is sometimes hard to sort through what's real and what isn't. But often that's where doing a follow-up test that's a little bit more structured. So with the comparison with us and the Purina site, ideally what you want to do is what's called a balanced comparison. So you're showing Animal Biome first and Purina second to, let's say, 3 participants, and then the reverse, showing Purina first and Animal Biome second, because there's always going to be either a recency bias or a sort of, I forget the term for it, but being biased by the first one they see. And so you start by asking the questions better. So when you feel like you're getting feedback that's conflicting, then you can narrow down the test to really focus on that. Like, which do you like better and why? And often what happens is when it goes beyond the which do you like better and to the why, you can actually then start to break down that the differences and why some people like one thing or another. The reality is, though, what user research is best at is helping you solve problems that you're blind to because you're too close to them, but are immediately obvious to users. And so, like on pricing, you're going to get people that give you all sorts of response on pricing, and user research really isn't the best way, or sort of the qualitative feedback isn't the best way to make pricing decisions. You can get like impressions on it, like we did in that video where that woman was like, $225 some people may say that's expensive, but it's not really that expensive because of why, you know, for her. But that we can't make a pricing decision purely based on that. Does that help you? Does that help at all, Shay?
No, it does. It makes sense too, that it's almost like a screening test in my mind, and then that can help you funnel more appropriate questions
Exactly.
based on the big net.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go through like the options you have for doing user research, and I'm really humbled now being back on the company side to realize that and to admit that we haven't been doing as much user research as we should be. Most companies do internal testing only, and like I mentioned earlier, it's actually way more costly than you think to not get external feedback before, during, and after the development process. And the reason is that if you identify and correct a problem in the build process versus after you've built it, often it can cost twice as much to fix a problem once it's live than to fix a problem in development. And so you think you don't have the money to invest in user research, but anytime you're developing a product, whether it's software or a service, an app, a website, or even like a you're doing packaging for CPG, because one of the things I didn't talk about was that you can actually do like mobile testing where you're having the user do a video of how they feed their pet, like if they have a smart pet feeder, how they actually use it. So you can do really much more experiential type test versus just a website or an app. But if you don't do that testing and you make decisions that end up being wrong, often, it's 3, 6, 12 months before you realize the problem and then can correct it. And you've lost a lot of opportunity because you weren't aware of the problem. Another thing that a lot of companies do is say, well, we have really loyal customers, so we're going to throw new product ideas or prototypes by our own customers. The problem is it's really hard to do that quickly and in a structured way. And so what happens is it becomes ad hoc, and you say you're going to put it in front of your users more often than you actually do. A little biased here because I used to work for user testing, and just doing a review of platforms the last couple of weeks, I think they really do have the best platform. It has the most features and it is very easy to use, but it's not cheap. And Animal Biome chose not to invest in the user testing platform. And I think, we suffer because of it every day. So maybe that wasn't the right decision for us. A couple other platforms, UserBrain and Userlytics, are more accessible from a price perspective, but UserBrain just has a really poor platform. And I found it better to download the video from UserBrain and upload it to user testing and use all of their tools to analyze the videos. And even just how you launch a test is pretty limited, but it's very flexible in their pricing model. Userlytics is a little bit of perhaps a happy medium between the two, but I would say that it's less expensive if you don't do a lot of user testing, but it ends up being a lot more expensive if you do the right amount of user testing. This is just, to indicate that a lot of the top companies in terms of user experience and customer experience use user testing. And then this is the different types of testing methods that you can employ to get feedback. And what I showed you was usability and competitive analysis. Literally, you can just have something that's written on the back of a napkin and show it to the screen, and get feedback on that. And so it's never too early in the process to get user feedback, but it really can be too late. And then there's lots of sophisticated methodologies that you probably will only do if you have someone on your team that has user research experience. So that's the high level of user testing, user research. I'll open up for questions now and see what you guys think.
No, me.
This is Chris from Pet Hospice. So we have what we consider to be a premium product, and I was actually interested because Animal Biome is clearly a premium product also. And I was wondering, before I heard the video, I was really wondering about the sort of the, like, how are the demographics, and someone who, the user testing panel presumably, skews towards lower income, and how, although the person that we got the talk track from was clearly happy to pay the premium pricing for their pet, but I was sort of wondering, like, how applicable are these panel results to a more premium product where people might just have some resistance to price, but someone who's not on user testing might have less resistance. And
that's a great question. That's a great question. And so on the user testing panel, you can segment the demographics based on household income. That video that I showed was from User Brain, and you could not, at least in the level of product I had access to, I could not do that screen. So that user was actually from a lower income bracket than I would have targeted. And so that feedback was very surprising. But on the only time like the user testing panel starts to fall apart at the high end of the scale is when you're looking for people with high net worths and you have financial products. So, but I've done tests with clients where they're looking for people with over $200,000 household incomes, and they have no problem filling those studies.
I don't get out of bed for $1 a minute, so.
Yeah, but what's funny is that a lot of people actually do user testing not just for the money, but because they actually enjoy it. They like seeing new products and new concepts.
So when you say it's relatively expensive, what was like your budget? What did it cost, if you don't mind sharing that?
Sure,
I looked on their website and they don't publish prices, so.
I know that's always a dead giveaway when they don't.
That usually means it's expensive.
Yeah, so it's basically their SMB plans start at about $15K a year, and they go up to about $30K. And with user testing, you get unlimited testing. So it's like an all-you-can-eat option. They sort of dare you to make it not worth their while.
Interesting. So $15K for a year, and you can get all the you can get the whole buffet.
Exactly.
Multiple.
And is that all of the kinds of? Is that including preference testing, longitudinal studies, moderated interviews? Is that all that stuff?
So at the 30K, you get everything.
Okay.
The moderated testing is interesting. So that's like an interview over Zoom, and you get to interview the participant, and it's really like you could just, if you have your own customers, you could do that over Zoom. But the tools they provide you to like analyze the video and surface insights are better. So like it might be something that you're not willing to pay for, so you go with the cheaper option. So Dylan, I saw that you put a Hotjar and a few others in the chat.
Yeah,
Definitely.
They're not apples to apples.
Exactly. Yeah.
But for some of the people in the tasks they're looking to do, there's a good list here. Hotjar is always a good one. I look at just kind of understanding passive user studies, right? What are they doing on my site? What else should I try? And there's the other really basic one with your own site, which I really like the ability to not analyze your own customers, Carlton, SurveyMonkey also allows you to find panels of users at about, I don't know what they're charging now, $1 to $5 per person. but there's other ways to run some kind of surveys with
Yep.
panels of people that you don't know. But they're not going to be in depth as a user testing platform. Like they don't compare. But there's other ways to hack them together.
That's right. That's right. And we actually did use SurveyMonkey and Google Surveys, Google Audiences, I think it's called, when we wanted to do some pricing studies. And you're able to get, I mean, you're not able to slice and dice the audience as much as I would like, but you are fairly cost effectively able to get hundreds of users within certain income brackets or with pets, even pets with GI issues, and then get some quantitative data around price sensitivity. And so we've used both of those tools. We've also used Hotjar.
Mm-hmm.
What I liked about Hotjar was the funnels, probably the most. I found like a lot of the heat maps interesting, but not really sure how to act on. And then the feedback that you can get, website feedback through Hotjar. And that can be useful to like identify bugs and things, but really it's not as in depth and you're only getting the squeaky wheel versus the customers that aren't invested enough in you to give you the feedback. So there are lots of tools and different places to use them, but so I'm glad you brought those up.
What do you think about the side, like on your own site? I've seen this done by people at different times, where they're A/B testing an exit survey before you go. How did you feel about the shopping experience today? Or hey, what did you one question on the way out the door? And
yeah, so
we're all used to this new like scroll up, modal window that pops up on so many sites. Like, hey, before you go, have you signed up for a newsletter? And maybe we're tired of them, but I also wonder, X% are going to click and say, yes, no.
Yeah, so that's useful for live experiences. And when I was at Medallia, we did a lot of those kinds of surveys, and we think of those as more transactional surveys. And so like, how did you feel about this interaction? And there's definitely a place for that. I think that it's harder to get very specific, like how do I improve my product or service, and more to get a temperature of how people are feeling. Like, although one of the things that I really like about those, pop-up type surveys is customer effort. So like someone signs up for an account asking like rate how hard that experience was,
Mm-hmm.
and then changing the experience and seeing if you can reduce the effort score. I really liked those because, the reason why Amazon wins is not because like their site is easy to navigate or even visually pleasant, but it is so easy to go from, I think I might want something, to actually having ordered it, that's why they win. And so their customer effort scores are really low, even though they sort of look like a crappy site. And then for most of us, A/B testing doesn't really work because we don't have enough volume. So typically you need to have, on the order of 5,000 or 10,000 users going through an experience to have a decent A/B test. And early startups just don't have enough volume to make that useful.
Right. Well, great. Any open questions as we come to the top of the hour?
Promo code for Animal Biome?
Absolutely. I will. I'll have Dylan send it around. I don't have one handy. I should have come handy with it, but I didn't. Yeah.
Hey, Carlton, this is Dan from Native Pet. Really helpful stuff. Like particularly, we're building out our e-commerce site now, so it's really applicable to us. Wanted to have one follow-up question on physical products user testing. So like obviously like the sites aren't perfect for that. Curious if you had any we have a bunch of new products coming out. So curious if you had any scrappy suggestions for different ways to get good data on some of the new form factors and products we're bringing to market.
Yeah, so the fast way is doing a user interview. So just over Zoom where you're actually able to show the product, and it's almost like ethnographic type like interview style. So it takes a little bit of talent to do that, but allows you to like not have to prepare like visuals. You can really just say, well, what do you think about this package versus this package, and that sort of thing. And if you have access to users, then Zoom does that. You could do a post on like Facebook or something just to say, hey, I'm looking for some feedback. People typically want to get paid for their time. So if you offer that, you'll get more people. But that would be the fastest way to get feedback on that.
Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Cool.
Excellent. Well, thanks again. We really appreciate this, and I'll share your information if anyone else has any questions. But thank you, Carlton, for joining us and kind of helping us walk through these things. And I'll share that code once you share it with me. I'll throw it up into the channel for them.
Awesome. Cool. Great chatting with you all.
All right. Bye, all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Carlton.
Bye-bye.